It's 5 minutes after the hour here on 90.3 FM WEJF. It's Wednesday. That means it's Joe Steckler Day, helping seniors of Brevard. And Joe is back from assignment. Joe, good to see you, and looking forward to today's show with Barbara McIntyre.
Thank you, John. And it's always a pleasure to have Barbara on the show because today it makes it a special day for a number of reasons. But before we get into the show, just let me remind everybody that the purpose of helping seniors is to inform, educate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors with resources that they need to, I always like to say age with dignity, but in many cases it's simply just to live. Today we're going to talk about reverse mortgages, and the reason we're going to do that, folks, is because there was a 5-page spread in the Florida Today main section of the newspaper Sunday on reverse mortgages, and according to the way I read it and the way I understand reverse mortgages, there was a lot of, I'm going to use the word misinformation because it was misinformation. It addressed a time in the history of our country when other things were happening that played more of an effect on reverse mortgages than we would normally have in normal times. And I think it's important for our listeners to understand what is written and the truth and the understanding of what is written. Newspapers have a captive audience, just like radio and television does. And we tend to believe what we see, read, and hear. So today, get a pencil and paper, and if you have a question or a comment, you can always call us here at the radio station, and Barbara will answer your question. And the phone number to reach us is 321-722-9998. I'll say it again, 722-9998. The show is made possible through all of our sponsors, and Barbara is one of our sponsors, and one of our sponsors is on Beachside Assisted Living. And I just want everybody to know that this afternoon we're moving into our new offices at Zahn Beachside, and after a 10-month wait, it's going to be the culmination of a long period of waiting to get into a space I think that will highlight what Helping Seniors does. There are 6 organizations similar to what we do. We're the only nonprofit that will be in a new business center of Zahn Beachside. They've made it a beautiful addition to the facility, and it's located essentially at the about a mile and a half north of the intersection of South Patrick and O'Galley Boulevard. It's north, about a mile and a half north of O'Galley Boulevard. So if you get a chance, drop by there Saturday afternoon. They're having an open house, and drop by and see what Zahn is capable of doing, because in my opinion, there are 3 really, really, really good places to go, and it just happens that all 3 have happened to be sponsors of this organization. But that's not why I say they're really the best. It's because they are the best, and they have products and organization and staff. They care, they're good, they're clean, they're modern, they're up to date. They have great food, especially their cookies, just fantastic. And nobody would ever believe me that I really like great cookies, but I do. And but living life is fun. If you have an organization like Helping Seniors to get out information, there's one thing I will talk about this morning, and I want to talk about the subject of elder abuse just a little bit, because we just had a recent show on World Elder Abuse Day. In my book, Elder Abuse Day is every day, not one day. It's every day, because seniors are taken advantage of so many darn ways. And every time I describe a way on my radio show or in the newspaper, some rascal comes up with another way to scam people, and it never ends. I will say this time, and then we'll bring Barbara to the mic. Anytime you get an offer that somebody's going to give you money, if you pay $1, $10, or $1,000, forget it. There's nobody that's going to give you money unless you pay for it some way. And the second thing is, anything that comes to you over the radio, the phone, or television, or about Social Security, forget it. Social Security does not send you stuff on the internet. It is via an official mail letter, and you can recognize it because it comes in the mail. It's got their right seal on it. It's everything. But any of this junk you get on your telephone, forget it. It's bogus. It's a scam. Well, Barbara, after that tirade...
Well, it's well said, and it's something that everyone needs to hear.
Well, it is.
Because it goes on all the time.
Yeah. I know there are 1,000 ways that we could start today's show, but I am not knocking Florida Today for what they had in a newspaper, but I think that through your vast knowledge of the reverse mortgage industry and what the government has put in place to protect owners of reverse mortgages, the dangers that were addressed in 5 pages of a small newspaper, in many ways they were misleading because they dealt with a period of history in our country that affected the entire country, and only a minuscule number of people were affected.
Well, I agree that the attention given it, particularly in our local newspaper, seemed a little overkill in that big of a publication. But to be fair, it was the same information was put out by a number of different publications, and it was, I think Florida Today was just trying to be responsible with bringing the same information to local people that more national publications had done. The other point of the article really did tell the truth about what happened to a handful of people, but what it didn't do was go farther and say what has happened over the years to ensure that nothing like that happens again.
But more importantly, Barbara, is that what happened, and when we're talking about, generally speaking, cities where we had inner city slums, people that so many people that were on assistance, and we're talking about the slum areas in Detroit, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, and there were about 6 other cities cited. I can't remember all of them, but these are known areas. Chicago.
Right. I would say, though, they weren't necessarily slums, but what they were was definitely inner city and definitely less financially able borrowers. And the problem that really occurred was that back in the early 2000s, in 2006, 7, 8, property values across the country increased well beyond, we later realized, beyond what they were really valued at.
What they were worth, yeah.
Right. As well as this product, the HECM, the FHA home equity conversion mortgage back then had no qualifying related to it. If your home would meet FHA lending standards, you would, and you met an age eligibility, you were 62 or older, you would qualify for the mortgage. There was no way to underwrite the loan to make sure a borrower was going to have the long-term financial ability to continue paying taxes and insurance, which is what is required to keep this mortgage in place.
And before the show, you made a point of saying that there's a truck going by, folks. That's what that noise was like. It's not Barbara breathing heavily. It was a truck going by. So, boy, that destroyed my chain of thought. See what you can do to me?
We were talking about the eligibility and that they didn't have to.
Oh, I know what it was.
Okay.
It had to do with if the people could qualify for a reverse mortgage, but they couldn't qualify for a standard loan.
Right, and that's because we didn't really have a qualifying process for reverse mortgages. So, for example, if you went to a bank and you wanted to get a conventional loan that had the requirement of a principal and interest payment because you needed to have cash in your hand, that borrower in that inner city community probably would not have met the qualifications to be approved for a loan, because conventional forward loans require a payment to be made. Back then, in that area, that time frame, 2007 and 8, heckums, because you do not have to make a principal and interest payment, we didn't have any real financial assessment or way to qualify a borrower that they would still go forward paying taxes and insurance. And so what resulted was some people getting the loan without realizing that at some point in time they would not have the resources to keep paying taxes and insurance. And that's one of the borrowers that was highlighted in this example. She didn't share anything about obtaining the mortgage with her family. They didn't know she had gone forward and done it. They didn't, when she got into trouble with taxes and insurance, because it's a long process, the lender steps in for a long time paying them for a borrower before foreclosure action is taken. The kids never were aware. And that is something that has changed now, because now, and that's the thing about this product, the one thing you can absolutely count on is that this product is going to change all the time. And the reason for that is that consumer protections are constantly put into place to make this mortgage actually a viable tool for people moving into retirement. And so as a result, now over the last years, I think financial assessment was I believe it was 2009, we started working with financial assessment. Borrowers have to actually qualify. They have to show they have enough income. They have to show that they have a history of paying their bills on time. They are underwritten. And if it's determined that a borrower is going to have difficulty paying their taxes and insurance, but the loan gives them enough money to, for their lifetime, be able to help them with that, we actually escrow the benefits of the mortgage to pay the taxes and insurance for them. Very different than how it was in 2008.
Yeah, and you keep mentioning 2008, right? Barbara, the first HECM came out in 1961 in Portland, Oregon, I think it was. And see, I read what you sent me, and so I got a pretty good idea of history. But folks, we're talking about a 60-year period of mortgages, a mortgage product, and how it has been applied at the changing of the housing industry in our country. And Barbara, one of the things you could talk about is the fact that while the first mortgage was issued in 1961, the real changes began in 1989. And then really the stronger things were put in place in 2008. But if people had access to what you and I have in front of us about a 60-year history of the federal government constantly reviewing this product to show how it can be used. And something that amazed me, for all the talk and saying that this product and how it has been affected in our country, at the peak of the industry, there were something like 115,000 mortgages in place. And, sometimes I think this is a classic example of taking things out of context and what our government has done and how we've tried to help people, and how we've tried to put something in place that would help people. Explain to people why a reverse mortgage, if we forget everything that was in the paper, if we forget everything that we know, considering everything that's in place today, the fact that people have to qualify, that they're constantly looked at, a good lender it seems to me that a good lender would constantly be reminding his borrowers about paying taxes and making sure their insurance is in place. Because I get that from my own insurance thing saying...
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, because we're talking about wind, especially in Florida, when we talk about wind and water damage, the same things apply to HECM as they do any other insurance.
Exactly. If you don't pay your property taxes, then eventually your home will be sold at the courthouse steps. So it's not just a HECM or a reverse mortgage problem. It's a problem for any homeowner that defaults on taxes. And if you don't have homeowner's insurance and your house burns down, you're not going to get a new house.
Exactly.
So
right.
it's a very big problem that exists for every homeowner. The facts about the requirement to have that is just constantly drilled into the head of the borrower. And again, financial assessment really does take a look to say, can the borrower actually afford to do this?
That's a key point. Can the borrower afford to do a HECM? I know. Why is that critical? What do you mean, can a borrower afford to do? What concerns do we have there?
Okay, I spoke with someone yesterday, and I spoke with the mother and father and their adult daughter. And in looking at their very limited Social Security income and the situation on their home, what its value was and how much they could actually access from the HECM, and their ages, over the life of the loan, it looked as if they might have trouble at some point, that their income might not be adequate to continue paying the taxes and insurance. And so what I said was, I thought that we should also explore them selling the home, looking at another living option. Because in reality, if you look at someone's long-term financial retirement plan, what's going to be coming to them over years, and you know what their taxes and insurance are going to be on the home, if there's any doubt that they could run out of money, then they could be one of those people affected. And a responsible lender is going to say it might not be the best choice.
And that, folks, is becoming increasingly more important today because I get a lot of phone calls on our office phone about people looking for lower cost affordable housing. And it breaks my heart that somebody has worked 70 years and then retired, and they find that they simply don't have enough money when they get into their 80s because they really believed and thought that Social Security would be their primary thing for retirement, and some people make it happen. I'm always amazed, Barbara, when I talk to somebody on the telephone and find that they're living on, I have one lady that was living on $1,610 a month and paying $802 of that on a home mortgage, and she's been doing this for 30 years. And she still is financially viable. She lives on the margin, but some people can do it, others can't do it.
Right, and it is very difficult, and it's a real reality check to see if, in her case, depending on the value of the home, maybe getting rid of that forward mortgage that had that large payment, maybe the balance owed on it was not that huge, and the value of her home was more, she might have been able to use HECM proceeds to help supplement her own short, her minimal income.
Right.
And that's where you take a look. I want to just talk again, though, about the different protections built into this mortgage today. Along the way, over the many years it's been available, we started programs that required borrowers to talk to a third party, a HECM HUD-approved counselor that is not involved in the transaction whatsoever, that is an opportunity for the borrower to actually know more have more opportunity to ask questions and to make sure that they fully understand what they're doing. That's another part built in now to this product that makes it more protective of the consumer. And
that was something I'd asked Barbara before we started the show, and I think it's important because many times that we deal with legal issues on this radio show. We deal with so many things that require other well-informed resources to be able to help make something happen. And I like to think that attorneys are pretty smart and everything, but I asked Barbara about attorneys, and there probably are some attorneys that are really skilled in reverse mortgages, and I think those would. But you give me your answer as how you answered my question.
I personally, my experience working with attorneys is that for the most part they aren't as informed because it's an FHA insured mortgage, and so they just don't have don't feel a real need to delve in. But what I do believe is that people should refer either to their accountant, or they should, if they have an advisor, financial advisor, they should incorporate them into the decision. The bigger part of this mortgage is, how does my long-term finances look? We are living longer. People are aging in place, sometimes 30 years after they retire. That's a long time to have your retirement funds last. And so the advice of that is important.
I think it's also extremely, extremely important to keep your family well informed of what you're doing, because in almost every one of the articles that Florida Today cited from the period in time that we know there were so many changes
It just that people need to talk to their family.
Oh, that's right. People do not talk to their family, and then there was a death, and they think that they've got all these financial things in place where they're going to sell the house, and they go and they find out that there are things that are attached to the house that they can't do what they're doing. But as far as when we think about 360 million people in the United States, and there being something at the height of this period, 115,000 loans in place, and how many there are in place today, I think that in some instances we're going to hurt some people, but in other instances we make a mountain out of a molehill when the real problem is whether or not people have adequately plan for or put in place resources to live their lives in retirement.
Right. And sometimes these articles, they cause fear. And so that's the problem. Now the fear is out there. Rather than going to a HECM subject expert, and that's important, you really have to talk to someone knowledgeable when you want to explore this mortgage. But the fear will stop someone who might really benefit from the product.
Right. And we want to talk about it a little bit on the second part of the show, but right now we're going to wind up and take a mid-show break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about World Elder Abuse Day and why every day is World Elder Abuse Day. And I talk about a case I am trying to work right now. So stay with us. Be back on, if you want to call us, 722-9998. Take it away, John.
35 minutes after the hour here on 90.3 FM WEJF. It's Wednesday. You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard. And once again, here's your host, Joe Steckler.
Thank you, John. Welcome back to the second half of the day's show, folks. Our job is to inform, educate, and connect seniors and those that care for seniors with resources. And we're making our move into Zahn Beachside facility today, and we hope by opening a new office after a 10-month wait while they did some construction, that we'll be able to help more people and be in the center of things more and more centrally located office that people can get to us if they have a question. But no matter how much I talk about it, I'm always deeply indebted to the people, our donors, people that supported our car raffle, people that support our annual fund, people that simply make a donation. And it's possible to do that. And if you want to make a donation, you can go to helpingseniorsof.org, or you can do a PayPal, you can send a check to us, you can do whatever you want to do. But our program is made available through our sponsors, our car raffle, our annual fund drive, and what people simply give us, and a small grant resources that we get some help from. No matter how you cut it, folks, we're never going to be an United Way organization with millions of dollars at our disposal. We'll never be that, and that's not what we want to be. We want to be in a business where we can answer people's questions and help them do things. And some of the organizations that help us do this are Bill Johnson, an elder law attorney, Dr. Lee Sheldon, he's a dental implant guy, and the Eye Institute. I mentioned those three because, along with a couple of others, they've been with me since the start of this program back in 1995. That's a long time, folks. It's a long time for an attorney to give 20-some years of a dentist and an attorney and Eye Institute people to give time to the conduct of radio and television shows, write articles for our newsletter, take time from a very busy day to help people. And that's what makes our program, I think, more viable than many other programs that purport to help people, because we don't just tell somebody some numbers to call for assisted living or affordable housing. We stay with them. We try to make sure that they get their problem resolved, and that's extremely important. And that's why it's so difficult for me, folks, at a time when I wasn't able to get here for the World Elder Abuse show that day. I really wanted to, but I've been recovering from a bug I got, and along with my other problems, and it turned out, for those of you that have gout, if you have it in one knee and then on the other foot, it's pretty doggone hard to get around. So once we figured it all out and got the right medication, to me it helped a heck of a lot. So I'm gradually getting back to battery, and getting back to battery for me is sort of a nebulous point too, because I'm not as active as I was at 60. I wish it was. But no matter how I talk about myself or my own medical condition, I get calls that so many times, folks, some of you that call me have associated things my wife has done through our church, or what I have done through my work with seniors, that people have followed us. And a recent case was a person that had followed me for some 11 years. And when I found out through a phone call what the problem that this person was having, what really hurt me was, and I want to talk about this in a sense of a form of elder abuse. Let's say a family member who still has a pretty doggone good grasp of the actual problems of living calls someone for help, and then another family member gets upset because the person made a phone call and doesn't want them to talk to somebody else because they don't think that they need to know their business. Well, those of you that call me about questions, and you know that I've asked you, and in some cases I'll ask you what your monthly income is, what your financial assets are, because it makes a difference in the type of program I can recommend that you apply for, or how you might go someplace for assistance. And if I don't know the facts, I can't help you. Nobody, no counselor, nobody that is trying to cover a broad range of topics that deal with affordable housing, elder abuse, ability to pay rent. I get so many calls, folks, about people that want to or need a second source of income to pay for the first and last payment on a renting a house, we don't have funds for something like that. There are, to my knowledge, there is no place other than some churches, their St. Vincent de Paul Society will help sometime, someplace with a one-time help. Now, if you need that month at kind of financial assistance on a monthly basis, getting it on a one-time basis is going to only cause you a problem in paying your bills. So be cautious, be careful about what you do. And the hardest thing the position I get placed in, folks, by some of the phone calls is that I really want to make a phone call to follow up. But in hearing, when I hear a very elderly person cry on a telephone, and while they want help, they're afraid for me to call because it might cause further problems within the family. And it's a hard call. Elder abuse and how people are treated. It's always harder to deal with people as they get older because so many times the elder person is so dependent on the family member for everything that they have that if some person interferes from the outside thinking they're going to do good, it only causes more of a problem. So it's a hard situation, folks. It's a hard call. And sometimes if I can't make that call, I will tell you because, I like you have to live with yourself based on the decisions you make. I have the same restriction placed on myself. But enough of that. But like I said earlier, when I couldn't be here for World Elder Abuse Day, consider, folks, every day is World Elder Abuse Day. And if you suspect that there is elder abuse, you can always call the Elder Abuse Hotline at 1-800-ELDER-ABUSE. 1-800-ELDER-ABUSE. You don't even have to give your name. All you have to do is report the situation as you see it. The people that take the phone call will make an informed decision as to whether or not they should send a counselor out to investigate the situation, and that is I've explained this situation to so many people that are trained in dealing with these kind of cases, and their answer was always, Joe, make the call so that people that are informed and deal with this every day can get to the bottom of the problem and find out if there is elder abuse. The second form of elder abuse that I think that people need to consider is placing your name or placing a family member's name or a caregiver, somebody you don't even know their background, but they're really nice. They help you. You like them. You form an attachment to them. You put their names on your checkbook. Big mistake. Big mistake. It's just wrong because I can tell you so many times I have been contacted by people that have done exactly what I have described to you, and they have been bilked out of thousands of dollars. So, if a situation really looks good, talk to another family member before you get yourself in trouble, or talk to a friend and try to get good advice. Well, enough of that. Let's get back here and talk a little bit about these reverse mortgages. And Barbara, of the long history that you've got involved with these reverse mortgages, can you tell our listeners why it's a good thing today in some cases, and describe a couple of the cases that it might be in a person's good interest, best interest, to get a reverse mortgage?
Sure, Joe. And I also want to say, always, because I work with borrowers and I go to their homes, every person that works or is around elders needs to be aware of that type of abuse you described, because I've even come across that in all my years. And when you see that, report is the best advice.
Well, that's
Definitely.
One of the good things, Barbara, about our sponsors, that we've got a range of sponsors that do go into homes, do see what's happening, and Most of all of them I know are pretty aware of what elder abuse is.
Absolutely.
And can help people. Yes,
absolutely.
Right.
So talking about what uses of this product is really beneficial for people would be cases like we talked briefly, the woman that might have had a very large mortgage payment, but maybe not a large principal balance on her loan, but she was making it work all that time, paying that huge payment and living virtually on a shoestring. By getting rid of that mortgage, using the HECM to pay it off, she's eliminating the principal and interest portion of her payment. It may improve her overall budget. That would certainly be one use.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I'm going to talk to that lady and see if she'll talk to you, because let's go into that just a little bit, because I know the situation. And let's say a person has a decent home in a good area, and they're paying $800 a month out of the $1,600 that they're $1,630 that they make, but they're making it but close to the margin.
Mm-hmm. Have to look at each situation. You know, it's good to always look at the option. And then again, by looking at the option and getting the full advantage of a subject expert, you're going to find out if doing that, getting rid of that mortgage and freeing up the interest that she's currently paying, she wouldn't be paying, that's now in her checkbook. So it might be a good fit, but every borrower is different. So much of this product is based on the age of the borrower. The older a borrower is, they have more available equity to them. So each scenario is very different. Another use is someone who is paying the high expense of long-term health care insurance. It's great to have long-term health care insurance, but it's expensive. So sometimes as people are getting older and, again, looking at their budget, they might find it more difficult to pay that premium. So sometimes utilizing housing equity to help them continue to pay the premium on a health care policy is smart. It depends, again, on the circumstance. I'll give you a personal use. At 62, I took out a HECM on my paid-for home so that I could put in place a line of credit. I intend to use that line of credit for home health care needs when I'm in my 80s. The line of credit feature of this mortgage actually increases your ability to tap into equity. So that is another very solid financial strategy, which is what we talked about before. This product is being seen now much more as a long-term strategy in a retirement plan. There's approximately 11,000 baby boomers starting to collect their Social Security benefits every single day. We are underprepared for a long retirement. Housing asset is, for many baby boomers, their biggest asset. Putting it into play as part of a retirement plan could be very important. Again, the protections around the product help secure the futures of people using the product. So, for example, something we didn't speak about before, one of the examples in the article was a woman who had come off title to her home because she was 3 years younger than her husband and she didn't qualify based on her age. So when she did the mortgage, she came off, and of course when her husband passed away years later, she was not on the title to the home or on the mortgage. I'm not sure because I don't have all the actual facts about her, but just in the last 5 or 6 years, there have been protections put in place for borrowers who have a situation like that where the wife can go back on title and have a life interest in the home. Perhaps she should not have ever been foreclosed on. Not having all the specifics, I don't know. But the protections continue to be done to assist people looking at this mortgage to make sure they fully understand what they're doing. They have the backing of FHA to ensure that If, for example, their house cannot pay back the debt years from now when they leave the property by moving or dying, the FHA insurance actually settles up with the lender. So your estate doesn't get a deficiency judgment or have to pay money back more than the house can pay.
Is that an automatic thing, or somebody have to file for that?
It's automatic. It is how an FHA HECM works. If the house cannot repay the mortgage, the FHA insurance fund steps up to pay back the lender what's owed. So,
I would guess that fund is in the red right now.
No, it's not. Every year in October, what happens is they look at the budget, they look at the product, and they look at the mortgage fund, and then
who does this?
The Congress.
Okay.
And then they tweak the HECM. If they have to increase the mortgage insurance being paid in by the borrowers, if they reduce the amount borrowers can obtain, all the changes that have taken place are always tweaking the product to make the product sustainable. And that means the mortgage insurance fund has to be fully solvent with no risk of going into the red.
Wow. But that goes back again to the 3 pages of things that have happened from 1961 to 2019, the number of changes that have been put in place. And as I read what you gave to me, Barbara, it seems like the federal government, Congress, is it Congress that does this?
Yes.
That they have done a pretty darn good job of and it seems that almost all the changes are positive changes that have helped protect both the borrower and the lender.
Yes, well, actually, they definitely help protect the borrower. The changes related to how much borrowers can borrow and the cost, meaning the mortgage insurance, they protect FHA's ability to continue to do the loan. If that mortgage fund could not stay solvent, the reverse mortgage would cease to exist. And we all know, because we work in this senior environment, housing, as we age, is becoming more and more difficult. People's ability to age in place in their own homes is going to be critical to how we take care of the aged in this country.
Do you see, based on what you have done and your work with reverse mortgages, do you see a greater use of this product being made by senior citizens in the next few years?
I do. I also see it being used by the less senior citizens, like the baby boomers, in their early or late 60s, starting to do things like I did, put a line of credit in place so that they have access to that growing line of available equity in their home. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the lady that called me about help and her situation is a very, very, very senior lady. But she asked me a good question. She said, Joe, why don't people, especially our churches who have access to an audience on Sunday, have people come in and speak on topics that would help them do a better job of living? In other words, what she was saying, how do we get the information out? And when you look at what's happening in our country is that newspapers are declining. The source of information for newcomers is sort of drying up. Not that many people listen to the radio anymore. The numbers on radio listeners are declining. I'm not even sure that television doesn't want to talk about things like reverse mortgaging. The question the lady asked me was, how will we be able to find out about all these things that are good that help people? And that's a question.
Right, it is. Interestingly, the article mentioned in a very negative way that the homeowners that were listed and talked about in that article, that as if it was shocking that even they had these lenders had gone to their churches to tell them about the mortgage as if it was a bad thing. And I kind of scratched my head because I have always been available to speak to senior groups and churches because I felt that they were getting advertising over a television set. And in a 60-second clip on television, it sounded just like pie in the sky. And I felt like it was very important for them to have the facts. And
well, listen, Barbara, the governor of New York is an extremely no, not the governor of New York. The police commissioner of New York City is an extremely well-informed guy, and he knows all about hackers. I'm talking about Tom Selleck.
He's definitely good-looking, too.
Pardon?
He's good-looking, too.
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to comment on how Tom... Actually, I like to watch Blue Bloods, but I think it's a good TV show.
But he sure isn't getting the whole message out, so...
You're exactly right.
Right.
It talks about the good parts. There are bad parts to all good parts, and that's why it's so important that when you make a leap into doing something and changing or making a significant change to your lifestyle, you need to get the best information sources available. And I was, when I asked you earlier in the show and before the show about attorney information on HECAs and reverse mortgages, I should have thought about financial advisor and CPAs and people that handle taxes and things like that, because they really know what your situation is.
Right, and they actually are a very large referral source for me. They ask me to talk to their customers. Or their clients. They come across the need. And they see the value.
Well, it's important that whenever we make a major change in what we're doing or changing an income source, we need to talk to somebody that can help us make the right decision. Right. Because the stock market can be good. Like somebody always told me, if you can't afford to lose it, you shouldn't be involved in the stock market. Well, I'm not sure that's a truism anymore, because you've got to do something to put something in place to protect yourself in retirement. What would be the last thing you might want to... Can we give people your phone number?
Right, that's what I was going to say. But the last thing I'd like to say is...
you go ahead, do it.
If you do have a question, or you have even a HECM and you have questions about the one you currently have, I'm right here in Brevard County and would love to be a resource. My number is 321-259-7880.
Say it again.
321-259-7880, and I'm always here to help.
Thank you, Barbara, and I want to thank you for listening to the show today, folks. It's always a pleasure to have Barbara on the show, because she does know her product, she does know the law, she does know the changes to the industry, and she knows how it can be used to help people. And I thought, after reading what I did in Florida today, that we need to talk about it today. So, with that said, come by Zahn Saturday afternoon, take a look at the new changes in their conference center and the addition to the assisted living facility. And thank you, John. Thank you for being on the board. And we'll be here with you next week. And Jennifer Helen will be on with me, and another guest. We're going to talk about home care and how people can get the basic elements of care to take care of themselves. Thank you kindly, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.